Good breakfast.
Oh,
All right. All
thank you.
right. I'm muting everybody.
Philip, stop.
All right, so I found a beautiful reading. It's not particularly on the theme, but it is on the larger theme of what we're doing here. It's from Martha Graham, uh, one of the mainstays of modern dance. And she says there is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there's only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is or how valuable, nor how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. You have to keep yourself open and aware of the urges that motivate you and keep the channel open. No artist is ever pleased. There's no satisfaction whatever at any time. There is only a queer divine dissatisfaction, a blessed unrest that keeps us marching and makes us more alive than those around us. I love that poem, and it does relate because today we're going to be treating praise and blame, and it's probably one of the most inhibiting uh, things for us perfectionists, in that we can't allow ourselves to make mistakes. We're terrified of being seen as less than perfect. And it's deeply rooted. I think I've told you, I'll tell it again, about I used to be part of a camp in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and I was kind of the camp policeman. Don't laugh, but it was true. So our worst problem was always with our young adults, the 20-year-olds who were bringing drugs, alcohol, and seducing high school girls. So I made an effort to go connect with them, socialize, so I wasn't always just the bad guy. Well, we're playing ultimate frisbee, and our team got to be skins, and cute little blonde next to me takes off her halter top and is in her sports bra. And I just looked at her playfully and I said, "That's not much more skin than you were showing before you took your blouse off. Was that really necessary?" Well, she looks at me and goes, "You are one of the most hostile people I've ever met." And I mean, I felt like I'd been kicked in the chest. So I'm obsessing about it. Out of camp, I'm still going, why would she say that to me? Is that really true about me? I get back to Shreveport. I'm going to my AA meetings. I'm talking to my sponsor, going, I can't put this thing down. And so for about 2 months, it's plaguing me. And I called my oldest boy and told him about the incident, because he was their age. And he said, "What did that girl look like?" And I said, "Well, she's blonde, about 5'2", and short hair." He said, "Dad, that was Rachel." I said, "So who's Rachel?" He said, "Remember I told you I went out to Colorado to spend a couple of weeks with a woman, and turned out she'd gotten another boyfriend and hadn't told me? That was Rachel." As soon as I heard that, all of that fell away. No self-doubt, no self-questioning, because I knew it was her, unambiguously her. So that's how much what we call that survival terror, that fear of being rejected by the tribe, as being seen as a burden on the communal body. Now, the equanimity that we're looking for, I haven't remembered this story for ages. There was a young couple that were exploring their sexuality, and the young girl got pregnant. So it gets to the point where she's beginning to show, and her father goes, "Are you pregnant?" And she says, I think I am. And he says, "Well, who's the father?" Well, not wanting to compromise her relationship with her boyfriend, she lies and says, "It was that monk out in the woods. Said I was out in the forest one day picking berries and he raped me." Father goes, "Well, that's unconscionable." So when the baby's born, he goes out and he takes the baby and he hands it to the monk. And he says, "I can't believe you. You're just a horrible person. How could you rape my daughter and get her pregnant?" Says, "There's no way I'm raising this child. You take it." And the monk looks at him and goes, "Is that so?" So he takes the child and he raises it. And about 3 years later, when the girl gets old enough to take care of the child, she marries the boy who is the actual father, and goes and tells her father, "This is not really the monk's baby, it was really his baby, and I want my baby back." So father goes out to the monk and he says, "You are such a hypocrite. You took that child under false pretenses. Give me the child back for my daughter to raise it." And the monk looks at him and goes, "Is that so?" And again, to have that capacity to have people call you all kinds of names, impugn your reputation, tell you that you're a total betrayal of your fundamental principles, and have the capacity to go, "Is that so?" is something that I want to cultivate. And that's why we're here today with Sharon, is to, as I tell my people, I say, what you do is about you. What they do is about them. And if they're calling you names, they're telling you about themselves. They're telling you about their perceptions of you. Don't take it on. Clearly see, like the monk did. Is that so? Right?
Right.
Right. Okay, let's hear what Sharon's got.
Okay.
Lesson 10, Praise and Blame. Welcome back. Today we're going to explore one of these pairs from the vicissitudes, praise and blame. Without some measure of balance, we will fall very readily into a state of being overwhelmed. It doesn't take much, actually, to feel shattered or overcome in some way. Balance includes some balance between loving kindness for ourselves and loving kindness for others. It's not realistic that we can completely overlook ourselves and continue to have that sort of resourcefulness, that sense of inner abundance to be able to give. The way the Buddha put it in a story that I've always liked is, there's always blame in this world. He said, if you say nothing, some people will blame you. If you say a lot, some people will blame you. And if you say just a little bit, some people will blame you. The story is that this man came to the monastery one day to learn something of the Buddha's teaching. And the first person he came upon was this monk who had taken a temporary vow of silence. So when this man said to him, "Will you tell me something of what the Buddha teaches?" he remained silent. And the man got really furious and stomped away. The same man came back a second day. He came upon another disciple of the Buddha who was renowned for his immense meditation attainment and his vast and elaborate theoretical understanding of the teachings. So when he was asked, "Can you say something of what the Buddha teaches?" he went into a long, elaborate theoretical explanation. And the man got really furious and stomped away. Now the same man comes back a third day and happens upon another disciple of the Buddha, this monk named Ananda. Ananda knew what had happened on the first day and knew what had happened on the second day, so he was careful to say something, but not too much. And the man got furious, and he said something like, "How dare you treat such profound matters so sketchily?" And he stomped away. So this group of people went off to see the Buddha, and they said, "Oh, Lord Buddha, this is what happened on the first day. This is what happened on the second day. This is what happened on the third day. What do you have to say?" And the Buddha said, "There's always blame in this world. If you say nothing, some people will blame you. If you say a lot, some people will blame you. If you say just a little bit, some people will blame you. There's always blame in this world." Our lives are cycles of praise and blame and praise and blame, often because of the very same action. And it's not meant to imply that we don't care. I mean, of course we do. But is that going to define the entirety of who we are? Because if it is, we will be lost, because we will constantly go up and down and up and down and up and down. I always think about those times that we receive praise and blame for the very same action. When my first book, Loving Kindness, came out, it had taken me quite a long time to write the book, and it was quite significant for me to release it. I was amazed that I had actually written the book and that it came into the world. And very soon after it came out, I was in California having lunch with somebody, and she said to me, "Oh, Sharon, you wrote that book in such a way that it's just like being with you. It's just like sitting down and having a conversation with you." And I was so happy. I felt, wow, it took me all these years and I finally did it. And you couldn't say anything nicer, more gratifying to a writer. It was the most beautiful thing. I was so jazzed by the comment that later that day, when I was having dinner with a whole other group of people, I brought it up. And to my surprise, someone responded by saying, "Well, that's not true." She said, "I'm reading the book and it doesn't sound anything like you. It's nothing like being with you." So you can be ecstatic at lunch and depressed at dinner. Or you could take a moment to realize they're talking about the exact same book, which I wrote from whatever was motivating me at the time, with whatever level of skill I could bring forth at the time, to which one person had one reaction and another person had a hugely different response. Without equanimity, I could easily be pulled from one opinion to the next. But do we really want to plunge into despair over something we could never control in the first place? In this sense, having some peace within, born of wisdom, is really very important. Not to have a kind of cocoon of delusion to cut off from caring, but being with the truth of things, so that we're not so hugely caught up in success and failure and praise and blame. There will always be praise and blame coming our way, no matter what we do. Knowing that doesn't mean we don't care. Of course we care. Most commonly, we want to be thanked for our generosity, noted for our courage, and lauded for our acumen. We generally prefer being told that we are adored rather than we are unimportant. How could we not? But the question I always try to ask is, how much do I care? Where do I find my most authentic sense of integrity? What is the basic source of my conviction and my willingness to take a risk? From what place do I summon up the strength to be a little different, or to express myself, or to step forward, or to just be myself? If I'm only happy when universally, uniformly, entirely praised, if I'm not happy when there's any disagreement, or a single frowning face, or a random slur coming my way, it seems I won't be happy very often. So how much do we care? Can we take in negative feedback and reproach and disapproval rather than just disavow it in a narcissistic fit of pique? At the same time, can we look at criticism with an open mind for what we might learn, while also holding it in the larger context of wisdom? There is always blame in this world. Can we look toward our motivation to speak or act to determine the worthiness of our action? Can we be discerning about whether or not we acted skillfully without deciding that praise means we have nothing to learn or any blame at all means we failed utterly? If we can't, we will continually give our hearts over to a shifting world of praise and blame that we can never finally control, and over to the vagaries of time and personal circumstance that always shape people's reactions. If we can't, we will continue to get our hearts broken as our expectations are thwarted and our measures of success are challenged. Or we can know who we are and why we do what we do, and we can try to act as skillfully as possible, and then know deeply from within that even if we are standing outside in the cold, but acting in alignment with our beliefs, inspired to put forth effort to realize our aspirations, to express our caring, we can reclaim our sense of integrity. See if you can set aside a few minutes without needing to answer your phone or respond to messages, giving yourself a little space relatively free of distractions. You can work with the following as a reflection or by journaling. Bring to mind the visual representation of equanimity I previously described, the gyroscope. At the center, the very core of the equanimity, is a core belief, the anchor that you return to, that which is most important to you. We'll take a moment now to name your personal or your core belief, if you find it, the belief that rests at the center of your personal gyroscope. It could be something like being of service or manifesting justice for all. Just see if something comes to mind as this fundamental value or set of values, and rest your attention there. When you complete this prompt, you can close the reflection by sitting quietly for a few minutes, just being with yourself. Eyes can be open or closed, however you feel comfortable. Notice how the breath is moving in and out of the body. Then take a moment to acknowledge the time you've taken today to offer yourself this course. This concludes today's lesson.
So, how are we seeing? How are we seeing? Through what eyes do we see other people? Through what eyes do we see ourselves? And this is probably one of the most pernicious outcomes of dualistic thinking that fall into good, bad, right, wrong, is that it totally distorts us in terms of our understanding of who we are and who others are, and begins to put us in conflict with ourselves and the world. I think most of us are trying to struggle to figure out, am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Are you a good person? Are you a bad person? And that's a problem that's never going to be reconciled. It depends upon who's doing the seeing. Now, the reason why it impacts us so forcefully is because of something Martin Buber, the great Jewish theologian of the 20th century, said: we have a deep spiritual need to be known thoroughly and approved of. I'm going to say that again. We have a deep spiritual need to be known thoroughly in our depth and approved of. And this is very close to what the Jews meant by a father giving a blessing, because most mothers love their children unconditionally. And therefore we go, well, of course you love me, you're my mom, you know, mom, oh, you're so wonderful. And it's like, man, 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 man. But father love tends to be a little more conditional. You know, it doesn't matter who your mom is, all the world cares about is what you can do. And so we get that. So when some figure can step in and see us without judgment or criticism, it heals the rupture that happens when we begin to internalize all the shame and blame of childhood. Every time we're looked at, I was watching a thing from Oprah about a mom who said, when my kids used to walk in the door, I'd go back and comb your hair, or you can't go out looking like that, go put on a belt. She said, what I wish I had done was just let them feel how much I love them, and just go, hey, beautiful, and let that love and that smile come out of me. And when we don't get that, we become attention junkies. That's Alfred Adler. When we're not loved for who we are, we start craving attention. Well, the problem with craving attention is we get good attention, we get bad attention. We feel up when we get good attention. We feel devastated with bad attention. And we're always trying to figure out, who am I based on what's going on outside? And what does healers do? Rumi talked about the glance. Talks about the glance, the way you look in your teacher's eyes and see that unconditional love and see the delight that they feel in your presence. That's what reconnects us with that king and queen energy that we had when we were children, when we knew we were worthy. So again, we've got to overcome that dependency on external affirmation of our value. And that's why Sharon's encouraging us to know in your heart who you are. You know, I know in my heart, my intentions are good. I don't always work out well, but my intentions are good.
Oh, Lord, please don't let
Get
me be misunderstood.
misunderstood. So reconnecting with that energy that Martha Graham talked about, to express that energy without fear of criticism, is a fundamental life skill to live if you're ever going to be joyful, because that's where equanimity emerges. That's where joy, spontaneity, playfulness all emerges, is when you're not that attuned to what other people think about what you're doing. So the difference between humility is the capacity to see yourself as a flawed human being and go, I'm lovable just as I am. Okay? Humiliation is when you see the faults. And that's why it's so devastating when someone else calls to mind. I was remembering my daughter going to me, she's about 3 years old. She goes, Dad, you're fat. And I go, yes, I am. And she goes, and you're old. And I go, yes, I am. And you got a funny looking beard. And I said, shut the fuck up. No, I didn't really, but I definitely felt it. But I did say, okay, honey, that's enough. Let's move on to another topic. So what y'all got today?
Well, I have, I never saw myself as much of a perfectionist, but I kind of am. And so I'm big on self-blame. And that's a hard thing to get over. So that's one thing I have. Another thing is a story about my grandchildren. I'm going to give them fake names since this is recorded. I was having breakfast when my granddaughter was probably 16. And my grandson would have been 5 years younger. Yeah, so 11 and 16, 10 and 15, something like that. And so I was having breakfast out with my son and my grandchildren. And something was being said. We were talking about a family. And I said, I feel so sorry for families where there's a good kid and a bad kid. That's such a hard thing to get, straightened out. And at that point, my son went to the restroom. And my granddaughter, I'm going to call her Susie, said, well, Grammy, that's the way it is in our family. I'm the bad kid, and I'll say Jimmy's the good kid. I said, Susie, that's crazy. That's not the way it is in your family. She said, yes, it is. I'm the bad kid, and Jimmy's the good kid. And I said, wow, I can't believe you feel that way. And she said, well, we'll ask Papa when he gets back. And I thought, oh, poor Papa. He's he's coming in to be lambasted. And he is a truth teller. So he comes back to the table and Susie says, Papa, aren't I the bad kid and Elliot's the good kid in our family? And he didn't respond right away, which gave me hope. And he said, Susie, you have been more of a challenge to raise. And that will get you so far in life because you're so determined about what you want and determined to get it. And he said, you're going to get whatever you want out of life. And Elliot's always Jimmy's more of a pleaser, and he's always going to have lots of friends because he's such a pleaser. And Jimmy got all into it and said, yes, Susie, you could have lots of friends too if you only would just do this and do that. And she responds, who wants them?
Yeah.
I've got a couple friends, and who wants a lot? She was just so finished with all the high school drama. Yeah. And so that was such a, yeah.
Nice.
So she had taken that on. She had been, I'm sure, I know she's been redirected more, and probably given more feedback about maybe changing her approach growing up than Jimmy had, but it never was a good thing, but she saw it as such.
Right.
So the self-blame thing with me, yeah.
Yeah.
It's made it very hard for me to figure out what I really want sometimes.
It brings to mind the teaching in your story as well, this writing that I just typed the other day. No matter the medicinal virtues of being a true friend or sustaining a long, close relationship with another, the ultimate touchstone of friendship is not improvement, neither of the other nor of the self. The ultimate touchstone is witness, the privilege of having been seen by someone, and the equal privilege of being granted the sight of the essence of another, to have walked with them and to have believed in them, and sometimes just to have accompanied them for however brief a span on a journey impossible to accomplish alone.
Yeah.
But I like that.
Yeah.
You wrote that?
No.
I know that is, who is that?
I was gonna say you should be getting paid.
It's pretty nice. I know.
That's
I
nice.
Well,
can't
it
see
reminds me of that story of the Aborigines, that when someone came in Africa, came out of the forest into
Oh,
the
right.
village, people would go, "I see you," and they would go, "I'm here."
Right.
And I love that. I
Right.
see you. We need to be
We
seen,
need to be
and
seen.
so think about punishments and how getting the silent treatment,
Or isolation.
of being isolated, or worse than being killed, was to be exiled from your tribe. How devastating those experiences are. And it goes back to the monkey mind and the way it's developed, that constant process of trying to define myself and trying to see how I am in relation to others. Well, that will totally keep you away from peace. That's why this is such a fundamental issue. 2/3 of what the monkey mind is designed to handle is involved in this issue. Does that make sense to you? So until we can accomplish what she's saying, which is give that monkey mind an anchor to know in your heart who you are and where you are in this moment, gives you permission to let go of all those questions that the monkey mind is going to generate, all the anxieties. And that's when you'll attain the equanimity and the peace that's possible. So all that endeavor just keeps you in the wrong part of your brain, keeps you locked out of the garden for a while. So people who don't have that experience, the Dalai Lama, when he came and talked with a group of American psychologists and psychiatrists, and they tried to explain the self-hate and the perfectionism that we have, he couldn't understand it. And so they kept going for about an hour, and he began to get a grasp of what we do in our heads in this country. And he said, that must be terribly painful. So we take it for granted that people do this, and they don't. It's the way we're raised. We live in an extremely hostile culture from the get-go. Judgmental. That's, again, that puritanical religion by ethics that we grew up with. So we come by it legitimately, but it's extremely difficult to undo. And that's why it's so important to have a Sangha and teachers who see you, that you look in their eyes and you see the delight, you see the love, you don't see judgment. We all need that. It feels like home when you get it, doesn't it?
Get it from yourself.
Say that again, Tiffany.
I was just you have to be able to get it from yourself, that whatever that praise that you're looking for. This whole meditation is reminding me, I was thinking a lot about my mom, who grew up with a very critical parent. And I remember a very specific time. This is quite some time ago. My grandmother she was a very critical woman. She was particularly critical of my mom and particularly critical of her physical appearance.
Mhm.
And I remember a time when we were going to visit, and my mom spending a lot of time and, working very hard to lose weight, going to the gym and working out and trying really hard to lose weight. And she was really proud of herself. I mean, she did it. My mom, she looked great. She was toned, and I mean, she looked fantastic. And so we took the trip, and my grandmother made one shitty comment, and my mom came back home and put on 50 pounds.
Wow. Yep.
So it just made me realize, I mean, even at the time, I was recognizing you did all of that for her and not for you.
Yep. But again, Tiffany, it's like, I think it's the Epistle of John, where it says we're able to love because he has loved us first. That it it takes someone to prime the pump. You can sit and say love yourself, but when I first started, I couldn't tell you anything good about myself. I wouldn't have known what it looked like. I really needed people, and I say this in AA meetings all the time. Thank you for seeing the good in me and holding it up in front of me long enough for me to risk believing it. Okay. So we can hear those kind of words and say, yeah, that's what we need to do. And ultimately, that's where Sharon got. But I couldn't have done it without my teachers and without the support of other people, counterbalancing all the negativity and holding my gold in front of me. If one way Sharon would say, or what's her name? Tara Brock.
One of my frustrations is with how it has become part of our common nomenclature to call everything perfect.
Right.
And yesterday, as an example, yesterday I was on the phone registering for a program actually that Tom encouraged me to look into. That's the Lifeline screening, Tom. And I'm on the phone with the agent, and she would ask me a question, I would answer her, and she would say, perfect. And
Yeah.
we're not talking anything profound here. She would say, I need to confirm your address. So I gave her my address, and she would say, perfect.
Yeah.
And she wanted to confirm my birth date. I told her, oh, perfect. And I'm thinking, after we go through a few minutes of this, I'm thinking, what's the deal here? My birthday isn't perfect. My address isn't perfect. It is just an automatic response.
Yeah.
It would have been more appropriate for her just to say thank you.
Yes.
She asked for my address. I give her my address. Thank you. Move on to the next question. But by doing that, when you go to the store and you are paying for something and you happen to have exact change and the cashier says, oh, perfect. We are so accustomed to hearing this sort of subliminally, everything's perfect, perfect. I've got to be perfect. And do you get a little frisson of a little thrill in you when you hear somebody saying that you're perfect?
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that has subliminally caused us to feel like perfection is an ideal, when in fact, nothing is perfect, absolutely nothing. There's the rainbow and the cloudy sky, and there's everything has its good and not so good. And building up this expectation in ourselves of perfection, I need to be perfect and everything in my life needs to be perfect, is what causes suffering, I think the Buddha would say. It's expectation of perfection instead of the ability to see reality as it is right now. And it is what it is. It's like the monk said, is that so?
And I couldn't agree with you more. And I get so angry at him. And Lindell's heard me say that, get off the damn script and talk to me. I get so
Right.
tired of these phrases they've got now. But the word I'm substituting, Channy, is worthy. I don't have to be perfect. And so one of my self-affirmations is, I am worthy just as I am. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of respect. I'm worthy of people's attention. I'm worthy of being taken seriously, just as I am. And I think that's more the point, is that we feel disvalued and unworthy when we're not perfect. That somehow I've got to be perfect to be worthy. Separate those two out. Worthy isn't going to happen. So I can be worthy and imperfect.
And we practice that on the yoga mat.
Yoga mat, yep.
Letting go of perfection. There is no perfect version of the pose. No matter what you see on the cover of a magazine, mastery of a pose is your expression of the pose. There's no striving, there's no having
Judgment.
to touch the toes, there's no forcing anything. So it's a great sort of laboratory to practice,
Yep.
letting go of perfection, because it is a form of self-judgment.
Oh, absolutely. And judgment of everybody else and everything around you. If something isn't perfect, and who decides what perfect is?
Exactly.
I give her my address and she says, that's perfect. Really? What's perfect about it? Does that make your address imperfect? So who gets to decide what's perfect? It's the judgmental quality that is also, I think, very destructive and puts us off on the wrong path.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
And it comes from the Greeks. If you don't know where it came from Platonic thought. And his understanding was that there was a demiurge that created everything that exists. There was the force from God, then the demiurge was the form. And that was the ideas God had in mind as he was in the process of creating everything. So God had a perfect tree in mind, and a perfect woman, and a perfect man. And in his understanding, our job was to take the material world, which was always at war with this divine ideal, and shape it. That's why we say, on earth as it is in heaven. We're striving to replicate what the perfect forms that exist in heaven. Jesus could never have had that thought. There is no word in Hebrew for perfection. When it says in the Bible, be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect, that's an inaccurate translation that has created this is what I call a virus, because it destroys the person that believes it. It's a thought that will kill you. Perfectionism will kill you if you take it seriously. What Jesus said in that line is, will only to unfold out of your own nature, just as God wills to unfold out of his nature. And he's saying God is perfect love, okay? He's not perfect love, but he's loving. He created you in his image, not male, female, black, white, anything like that. He created you as love, as joy, as peace. And he wants you only to unfold out of that nature. You hear what a radically different interpretation that is, and how much more in harmony Martha Graham's statement is than with what Jesus was trying to articulate. So it really is a tremendous consolation to understand that it was a Greek thought, something somebody made up. It had no reality to it, There's no divine punishment coming in behind it because of your failure to embody perfection. Instead, it points you back and giving you permission to, that's why it's so important. Know who you are. I'm peace, love, and joy. Then what do I do today? I express peace, love, and joy in the imperfect way that I am, that only I can. So it's like being a dog. What's the perfect way to be a dog? Is it to be a Great Dane or a Chihuahua? Is it to have big ears or little ears, long tail, short legs, long legs? What's the perfect dog? It's a waste of tremendous spiritual effort to get engaged in that. The mind go down rabbit holes forever. So just forget it all.
Yeah. However, cats know they are perfect.
And they're right. There's
Hey,
If
Bart.
if I may add, Bart, sorry for interrupting, Karina. So I just, for me, I think it's important to remember why you're doing something. What is your purpose? What is your heart telling you? Why are you doing this? Real quick, I won't take up too much of your time, but for me, I really struggle with this. I've been what you would call a perfectionist my entire life. And now with my career as a police officer, I really struggle with the day-to-day because it's so hard to do my job and I'm judged by everybody, my peers. I'm a supervisor, so I'm judged by the officers that I manage, by the public. I'm a female officer, so there's all these things, and if I don't do things right, I'm really hard on myself, and I start questioning if I should be in this job because maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I don't understand the laws well enough, or maybe I'm not performing the way I'm supposed to, or I'm not serving justice the way God intended. So I question every single day for the most part if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So, but then I have wonderful people like the people next to me, Dale and Gina, that remind me who I am, the heart that I have, and the
Amen.
reason why I'm doing my job. And even if I make mistakes or I misinterpret, somebody's criminal activity, and I appear to them that I'm judging them based on the color of their skin or what have you, I'm reminded by people around me and people in this community that know me. They say, Karina, you're in this job for a reason, and you're here, you've got a purpose and you're doing it right. Will you make mistakes? Yes, but we know at the end of the day that your heart is in the right place. You swore an oath before God and before everyone else that I'm going to protect people the best I can, and I'm putting my life on the line every day because my life is not as important to me as everyone else around me. So I think I have to try harder to remember that, no, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm doing the job every day because I want to help others. And I want to protect these beautiful lives and the parks around me. So I think when looking at blame and, the occasional praise that we get, it's important to remember the reason why we do things and the reason why we devote our time and our efforts to letting people know how much we love them, or, the things that we do. It's a reminder that for me that, yeah, I make mistakes, but you know what? I love what I do, and I get up every day and I do it because of the goal that I have to, my silly little cheesy goal is to change as many lives in a positive way as I possibly can in my lifetime. So I think that's important to remember that we're not perfect, but think of it as like our goal is kind of perfect. We're out there trying to do the right thing, and we're gonna falter because we're human, right? So anyways, I wanted to put that out there.
And it just echoes what Sharon said about anchoring yourself in who you are and knowing what you're doing. And I just want to say, I wouldn't want anyone in your position who didn't feel the way you do. Okay? Somebody
Exactly,
who's
yeah.
they're right ensures that they have the answers are the scariest people I know. And we don't
Yeah.
doubt as a fundamental part of the spiritual journey. But doubt, as opposed to the true believers, is actually a sign of faith, of trust, of the ability to get out and risk not knowing for sure whether you're right or wrong. I'll refer you to a book by Soren Kierkegaard, the Danish theologian, called Fear and Trembling. And it deals with Abraham taking his son up to the mountain to sacrifice him. And he said, if he's sure that it's God's voice telling him to sacrifice his son, and he does, he's a moral man, but he's not a man of faith. He said, if he takes every step in fear and trembling and doubt, why would God ask me to do this? Maybe it's not God. He's told us not to kill our sons. And yet now he's asking me, he says, if that's his frame of mind and he takes every step in fear and trembling, he is a man of faith.
Karina, you are exactly the kind of police officer I would want protecting my community. Somebody who really has the values of, I mean, perfection is overrated, but somebody who has the values to think about what they're doing, and to really care. That is the ideal, in my opinion, of a police officer. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for taking your good values into the community to try to protect people. That you have my utmost admiration and respect.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
For most of us. So
Agreed.
Thank you.
we need to go, my friends. So almost out.
Great way to end. Thank you, everybody. All right, let's take a deep breath in.
And by the way, Karina, that's why we do the raspberry at the end. It's because it's all just a bunch of fuckery, and you got to still do the best you can.
Thank you, everybody.
I love all of y'all. Have a
Yeah,
good
love everybody.
weekend.
Love you, Gina. Just keep
Yeah.
rocking. Keep rocking, Gina. Don't let them stop you. Don't let
Don't let the best
next to you.
down. Amen.
Thank you.
Come
Remember, there's always
Guys.
Bye.